a Monday. I'm in a little bit of a new space today with my little potbelly stove. Today is disability awareness around the world. It's being celebrated in many different ways. There's a blog article up today on LifePro's site specific to today's international celebrations, if you want to see some more information about that. I work with a lot of special needs, whether it's a chronic thing or a short-term thing where you're just having mobility problems. Today, I want to talk about two basic product lines of LifePros that are very common in some of my coaching groups and common things that I've been doing to support and empower those of my clients that are dealing with mobility to make their exercise and their therapeutic work easier. So if you're dealing with a disability, whether it's poor mobility, lack of strength, lack of stamina, the first thing we're going to talk about today are vibration plates. And if you've ever joined any of my sessions in the past, I have a stool, and this is a very important accessory to have handy today. If you are dealing with poor mobility, you're unable to stand for long periods or without assistance, starting with a disability, you can use a vibration plate in many modified ways to kind of tailor and maybe work through some of the exercises or stretches that you are to be working on now. So one of the things I want to start with is just working the legs. So if you do deal with poor or no mobility, you tend to be sitting a lot more. And what ends up happening is a variety of different symptoms over time can crop up. Things like swelling, loss of strength, loss of balance. There's a whole range of things that start to occur when we don't do weight-bearing exercises. So if you're dealing with a mobility and perhaps you have braces or something that you use on your leg for a supportive nature, one of the common questions I get when you're starting a vibration plate for the first time is, should I wear my AFOs or should I wear my braces on the plate? A vibration plate, for those of you who are unaware or have maybe just thought that this is an exercise or something that fit people do, I would say probably 70 to 80% of the work I do with vibration plates is dealing with insufficient deficiencies. So poor mobility, atrophy, paralysis, full body paralysis in some cases. So a vibration machine is an environment that reduces the amount of time that you spend doing traditional exercises. It also dramatically reduces the amount of impact to your body. So if you're dealing with muscle joint pain, if you're dealing with scoliosis, whatever the deficiency may be, reducing the amount of time and impact to the body when you're performing your exercises is going to go a long way to improving muscle strength, combating things like atrophy, neuropathy, any of these conditions where the body has digressed and you've got these chronic symptoms that often hold you back from being active. So if you're going to be joining me today and you are dealing with poor mobility, poor balance, poor anything, I want you seated on a stool. If you've never used a machine before, all of the coaching that I do is in oscillating movement. Oscillating is like this. It very much mimics the movement of walking. It is the primary movement of vibration plates, and all of LifePro's plates have oscillating movement. If you have other movement styles, they are added features and bonuses. But in my world of functional training, when I'm dealing with a disability, one of the most common things we want to improve short term is your stability and your mobility. For my seniors that are dealing with perhaps Parkinson's, a stroke, and the mobility is impaired, the balance is definitely impaired. We want to reduce the risk of that fall, reduce the risk of that break, and improving your balance is one of the things that a vibration machine gives you almost instantaneously on a short-term basis. In a seated position, you're not going to feel it much past the knees. But one of the lessons I want to leave you with today, if you're experimenting with this for therapeutic use at home for your disability, is depending on your body type, your structure, and your tolerance, intensity or how strong the movement of the plate feels is going to vary for everyone. And it might change if you're dealing with a chronic issue, you might have good days and bad days. So when you're starting for the first time on the slowest of speeds, I want your feet just about hip width apart. So if you're only 3 to 4 years old, your feet are going to be closer than if you are older or taller. So just line your feet up about hip width apart. If in this basic starting position at the beginning speed, you find this is too much, it's not comfortable, it's too strong, bring your feet closer to the center. Regardless of what speed you are using on your plate in oscillating movement, the control is always in what we refer to as amplitude, and that's how much the machine is moving you. So if your feet are really, really close, I want you to take one now and just put it off to the outer edge, and you'll feel a substantial difference in the amount of movement from one foot to the other. So it's never a speed or a program or a level. It's this beauty of being able to customize amplitude is how you can tailor for your needs for whatever exercise it is with whatever speed that you're doing. The next tip I want to give you, keep your feet close to the center. I want you to get out of the slow speeds. There's a really common term, and there's no right or wrong. There's no black and white to getting fit or getting therapeutic exercises done. If you went to the gym and hired a trainer to improve, your leg strength, perhaps you've been immobilized for quite some time, that there's going to be 10 different trainers that have 10 different approaches into how to get those legs strong. So there's not a cookie cutter program for every issue out there. It's more about you personally, what challenges and hurdles you're dealing with personally, and what body you are personally working with. So I want to teach you to get to those mid speeds as a starting point. I always talk about being more conservative, whereas on the pages and a lot of the support discussions, it's about starting slow. And we associate that with a speed. So the slowest speeds on your oscillating plate are choppy. They're designed to be choppy. It's kind of like being on a Bosu ball. It's about balance and destabilization. And if you're a yoga person or you do Pilates on a regular basis and you've got good balance and you want to challenge your body by doing balance type exercises, these are good speeds to do those types of exercises in. So the slow speeds are for things like planks or, one-legged positions where your balance is good and you want to challenge it. If you're dealing with a disability, we want to improve your balance. I don't necessarily want to challenge it. So a wide foot position is the most destabilization, and it can be kind of scary. If you're standing on the plate and your balance is poor, you might find yourself, a little bit more challenged than you're ready for. So the control is always in the position of your feet. So I'm going to remain standing for the next little bit. I want you to bring your plate now up to a mid-speed range. So whatever range your machine offers, I always talk ranges because that's how you can kind of play with things and progress or degress in cases. You want your knees, if you're standing on the plate, always to be slightly bent. It's about the muscles, the natural hip, those hip absorbers, the shocks, the hips absorbing the movement. If you stand taller, you're going to hear it in my voice. You're going to feel it in your head. That's not a harmful thing. But if you're dealing with like frozen shoulder or you've got neck issues, scoliosis, the natural tendency when you're dealing with a disability is to guard and protect, or any deficiency. So when you guard and protect and fight the machine, you are rigid and it becomes more intense. You want those muscles to accept all those little good micro movements. It's moving circulation. It's improving lymph, and you don't really have to do anything special to improve balance. Just by standing on the plate and your body kind of being forced to stabilize itself, your balance improves, okay? If you want to pick things up a little bit, instead of doing a balance type exercise, you could try just closing your eyes. And your body's got to rely more on other senses than vision. For those of you that are feeling comfortable at this point and you're dealing with a disability and one of your goals is strength, a really simple exercise you're probably working on now or supposed to be working on is a squat. So a squat's going to look different for everybody depending on your range of motion, your height, your current conditioning. But you'll notice as you bend a little bit deeper, you feel the vibration suppress further. You don't even really feel it much past the legs. We stand taller again, and you feel it travel up. So If you're feeling more comfortable with a wider foot position, very commonly when you're suppressing your mass and you're bending into a squat, you can take on a bit of a wider foot position and challenge yourself further. You've got to experiment with what combination works best for you and the exercise that you're working on. Some of you may have a protocol from your therapist or the doctor the specialist you're working with that you're supposed to be doing regularly. A vibration plate is a phenomenal way to take those exercises or stretches that you're supposed to be doing already and make them more effective in less time with less impact on the joints, if that's a concern. I'm going to bring the chair back here. One of the exercises that many of my clients with disability, especially my kids in my cerebral palsy group, it's a very simple exercise. It's not a whole routine, but it's the sit to stand. There's been a bit of conversation in some of my groups about this week. The sit to stand is an exercise, but it's something that you do every day, all day. Every time you get up out of your chair and stand up, you're doing what's called the sit to stand. Sometimes the stand to sit is a little bit more challenging. But if you're dealing with poor mobility, you may want to do this by, something where you've got something to hang on to. Maybe you do it by the edge of a counter or the back of a couch, or have a chair with some handles on it if you need assistance getting up. If you're unable to physically stand up and do that exercise, or you're fearful for doing that yet, just, you can start by developing leg strength just by starting that position. So you're kind of leaning like you're about to get ready to stand up, but you're not quite there. Progress and modify however you need to for your personal situation and your needs. Perhaps you've got a deficiency more prominent in one leg than the other. Maybe you've just had recent surgery on one side, or maybe you've just got a strong side due to an injury. If you are dealing with an injury or a deficiency prominently on one side, you can certainly keep the good leg or the leg that hasn't had the recent injury moving. And, a lot of times if you've had a recent injury or surgery and you're to avoid weight-bearing activity on that one side, the other side's doing all the work, and it might need a little bit of extra attention as far as relaxation, just some lymph and some circulation. But you can, if you're able to bear weight on one side, you can put your other foot on it just as a balance. Or there's an awesome new tool that LifePro has introduced into its lineup. If you have an aerobic step at home, this is LifePro's new Flex. Oh, I just hit the button. That's okay. Okay. Another way that you can use your plate if you're dealing with a deficiency on one side, or it's just a fear, is you can put a block or use this new Flex step. And what you're essentially doing is you're going to expose your body one side at a time. So what you're doing here is I've turned sideways, which is another way that you can use the platform. Wherever your heel connects with the plate, that's what's driving the amount of movement. If you move your foot further back, you'll feel like it's pushing you forward. If you put your foot forward this way, it feels like it's pushing you back. So this is a good way to not only reduce exposure to a weak side and kind of give one side the attention, it's also a really good way to reduce vibration up to the head. If you do find you're unable to bend a little bit deeper like I have been, and you need to stand a little bit taller, it's a good way to further minimize head vibration. You could also place this step beside the platform. So if this is challenging, you can put one on the step beside, one on the plate, and work one side at a time. And like I say, this, maybe you're able to bear weight, but you're not comfortable, your surgery is recent and you don't really want to expose it to the movement of the plate yet. You can still keep working one side very effectively and isolate the side that's recovering. If you are able to take a little bit of action, but you're not able to maybe stand for long periods, the next progression would be seated. You can certainly get some circulation and lymph going to the one deficient side, but you're not requiring it to structurally bear weight. So those are just a couple of tips. If range of motion allows, I wanted to show you one more exercise. It's not really an exercise. It's just a really lazy way to use your platform. For those of you that are dealing with leg pain, spasticity, you got a little bit of upper body tension, I could talk for hours on modifications, but if all you're able to do is remain seated, you're not able to get onto the ground yet, you're not able to stand, you can add upper body by, in addition, putting your hands on your knees or putting your elbows on your knees. Just until you progress a little further or are ready to do so, you can certainly get a little bit more total body exposure and deal with some of that neck tension at the same time. For those of you that have better range of motion to me is never getting down on the ground. It's being able to get back up after you've done your thing on the ground. Those of you that have done a session with me in the past know exactly what I'm talking about. What I want to do is sit on the machine, and in my CP for vibration group, it's very common. Probably everybody, every time I've ever done a session, this is a position I recommend. We're going to target the bottom of the glutes and the hamstrings. And for those of you that do spend a lot of time sitting and are unable to stand for long periods, you're probably dealing with a little bit of indigestion and even some constipation issues. It's just the nature of the beast. So sitting on the platform, standing on the platform, there's lots and lots of anecdotal evidence out there and a few studies now that the machines help get things moving. Well, not just your blood and your lymph. If you're having issues with bowel movements, urinary incontinence, there's a lot of ways that you can use the platform. So for my therapists out there, for my moms and my dads that are dealing with littlers, you can position a child or yourself if your range of motion allows. I want you sitting on the platform. A little hack I like to do is I like to have the buttons between my legs. Sometimes if you're sitting on it, you speed it up or turn it off. And then if you want to change the speed, it's accessible right here. You want your legs extended straight out in front of you. If you've got your foot flat, you're kind of just up on your butt bone there. We want to get as much real estate on this platform as we can. There's a lot of different reasons I use this exercise, from cellulite to skin tone to muscle spasms to spasticity. But for today's purpose, for those of you with disabilities, if you are dealing with tension in the hamstrings, tightness in the hips and the low back, urinary incontinence, constipation, digestion, just by getting this part of your body directly on the plate, there's a lot of passive benefits that can occur, especially for those of you that might be dealing with paralysis or the inability to stand or get yourself down on the ground. If you can get yourself sitting on this plate, you can take advantage of a position like this. You can also start adding some upper body. So the more things that you can combine into any one position, the more you're getting done in less time. So I'm all about best bang for your buck. I want you to take your hands now and tuck them just under your butt cheek. Hands down, palms down. Elbows are kind of naturally bent because your arms are longer than your torso. And just by sitting on your hands, this is going to help with things like grip strength, neuropathy or Raynaud's if you have that in the hands, or if you just have nerve damage due to whatever is going on. But you're going to notice a little bit more movement in the upper body, the neck and the shoulders. Again, don't resist, don't fight it. It just takes some getting used to. If you're sitting really tall, you'll notice it's more in my head. I've been doing this for 15 years, so I love head rattle. I love rolling my neck around. You might not be ready for that yet. Lean forward just slightly if you find that's more comfortable. If you want a little bit more intensity, a little bit more strength while you're doing this on the upper body, push into the plate a little bit with the heel of your hands, and you'll feel it gets a little bit harder. Just hold for 2 to 3 seconds and release. Push, 2, 3, 4, whatever your endurance allows. Do that in a few reps. If you're very thin or very sensitive on your skin surface, you may want to put a bit of a mat on the plate surface. Most of Life Pro's platforms come with a mat. What this one is it's just an old yoga mat that I've cut to fit the machine. I usually cut out a little hole for my buttons. But if you need a little bit of cushion, if you've got some bruising or lesions on the skin surface, you might want to cushion up just to give yourself a little bit of comfort. It's really a sensitivity thing. I also prefer bare feet. So if you do have the ability to stand with bare feet or socks, you were not born with shoes. This kind of conflicts with what I was saying about AFOs earlier. But if you're just getting started, the first week or two is just getting used to how this feels, how your body's receiving it. And once you get comfortable, then you can start experimenting. And the reason I prefer no shoes is it allows the muscles in your feet to have more direct contact with the stimulation. It forces them to do their job a little bit more effectively, as opposed to the AFOs or the supports holding you in position. And maybe it's a combination, for a lot of my ladies that are wearing compression garments, they're a pain in the butt to get on. It's exercise in itself. So, if you're just heading out the door and you need a quick vibe because your back's hurting you, or you need some sensation back in your feet, you can do them with or without your compressions, your whatever aids that you may or may not be using. I encourage you experimenting using your plate with and without your devices, and you'll find the harmony that works best for you. But the beauty of using a vibration plate at home above everything else is it launches the ability for you to be more consistent in the regular things that you're supposed to be doing as part of your protocols. However simple or complex they may be, I want to stress again, a vibration plate is simply an environment. It's not some weird, funky thing that you do on top of everything else that you're doing now. It can certainly be in complement as a recovery or a warm-up, but the exercises that you are to be doing now, the stretches, try performing these on the plate, and you'll find that you can increase the effectiveness while reducing your time and exposure to joints. So that's really kind of a no-brainer. I've been, like I say, working with a lot of different special needs for some time. I don't really like labels, maybe it's CP, maybe it's MS, but I talk about symptoms. So symptoms can be very common. Neuropathy can be a common thing for diabetes just as much as Parkinson's or someone that's had a stroke. So how the machine assists you I talk more symptoms because symptoms are universal. There is no program for MS. There is no program for cerebral palsy. If I lined up 100 of the families in my group, everybody's going to be dealing with different issues, different surgeries that they've had in the past. They're going to have access locally to different therapies. So sometimes what you're doing on your plate at home is to enhance the therapies that you're already doing. But over the last couple of years, where cost has been a factor for many of my families, and just the inability to travel, a vibration plate for a lot of my families has become their home therapy. It just takes a little bit of time and experimentation. The other thing I want to talk about very briefly before I get to questions, but I need my caffeine, is massage guns. And massage guns, think of a massage gun as your pocket-sized whatever you need. So I've done videos on massage guns in the past, but I just wanted to touch on it briefly. Please read the blog article out today. We do get into a little bit more detail about the applications of this. But where a massage gun would become super, super effective in the disability community is for a lot of the same reasons we were dealing today, but more for the feel good. You've got tension, or you've got a cramp, or you're going to therapy and your hamstrings are tensing up, or you're at work and you're getting numbness in the hands. Simply by hanging on to a massage gun, if that's all that you're able to do, it's going to start improving circulation, grip strength, mobility, range of motion. I've had so many clients that have said, Debbie, you are crazy. I can't even hang on to that thing. How am I even going to massage myself? Well, that's the first step. Just hanging on to that thing is going to improve the tool that applies it to your body. So a lot of my therapists out there, just hanging on to your massage gun for a minute or two before your next manual appointment is going to prolong the life of your hands. Those are your tools. For my moms and my dads, no more an hour and a half of massaging hamstrings or tight calves just so your kids' legs can lay flat and they can get a good night's sleep. A massage gun or sitting them on the plate is a spot treatment that you can do to reduce that spasticity, take off those AFOs, and give them a good night's sleep. Your kids, and for my adults out there dealing with disabilities, your challenges better than anyone out there. So sometimes just getting that little creative kid out and playing with some of these technologies, once you understand how to use the adjustments that they offer you, is not only a good way to just start moving and feeling better, but there's a mental side to this as well. Mental health, it releases oxytocin. It makes us happy. So even if all you're doing is lifting your mood, it generally makes you more receptive maybe you'll go to that therapy appointment after all because you're now in a better mood for it. Or perhaps you're at work and the mental clarity is affecting your job performance. You got to write a blog article or something, and you just can't get into it. So maybe a minute or two on the machine to reduce tension, get the blood flow going, move some nutrients through your system. It doesn't always have to be a big workout. So as I said, today is a big deal. It is International Day of Persons with Disability. I wanted to get the title right. There is an article up on the blog today speaking specifically to some of my suggestions for massage guns as well as vibration plates. I'm going to flip to the question portion. I'm sitting on a couch backwards here. I've moved into a new space today. I hope you like my little stove. Who else have I got here with me today? Hello, Dolores. Advanced osteo in the right hip, very painful. Can hardly move. Knees are swelling. Low back so weak. I can hardly stand or walk to the bathroom. Oh, if I end up with a hip replacement, will I still be able to use my Rumblex 40? Absolutely, you can. And I'm glad you appreciate my events, and I'm glad that you attend them. My style is not everybody's style. I ramble. Sometimes I think I've been doing this too long, and there's too much information in the zip drive of my brain, and I just want to make sure I cover it all. But Dolores, for many of the reasons I talked about why this is a good thing, this is probably what you should be doing now. You need to reduce the impact if you're getting ready for a hip replacement, and anything that you can do to improve that circulation and lymph and mobility and balance before you go under the knife is just going to make that recovery easier. And the biggest thing I notice with a lot of the kids in my cerebral palsy group go through a very traumatic surgery, very amazing surgery. But they're back on the plates within 2 months after, and it's a spinal surgery. So the kids that I find have used the plate prior to that surgery and are using it as a recovery to expedite afterwards versus my kids that haven't used it, there's a different level of comfort. And honest to God, if you haven't used a machine post-surgery, even in my situation, I sometimes recommend maybe 3 to 4 months because there's all the newbie stuff, the itchiness as your circulation gets going, the sleeping better, the pooping better. If you've kind of gone through all that pre-surgery, you know what to expect. And what you're going to find, Dolores, is if you've been using a plate pre-surgery, you're going to be, I want on my machine. You crave it. It makes you feel better. It gives you energy and it gets that lymph and everything else going. So it's going to help expedite the recovery. When you are able to do weight-bearing exercises on that hip is really going to depend on how the recovery goes. But the other hip that is not getting surgery on, some of these things where I was standing side by side, you can still keep activity. That's going to be doing all the work. So you might need to actually give that other side some additional attention and just sort of wait until we get some weight-bearing exercise clearance from your OT or whoever's looking after you post-surgery. I hope that wasn't too rambly. You've also had rheumatoid arthritis. So even just for that, you should just get the blood going in those legs. You don't want to have that setback. Surgery is going to set you back to a degree. The more you can ramp things up. And what you'll find, if the hip's really bad right now, Dolores, maybe it's lots of sessions. Maybe it's 5 or 6 whenever you feel like you need it. But it might just be a couple of minutes. It's not about going longer and longer when you're dealing with chronic issues. It's about using it more frequently to treat those symptoms. All of that adds up to better bones and more strength. Hello, Belinda. I hope you're well. I love when I catch your live. I'm sorry that I've kind of been all over the place. I have a new superstar behind the scenes, my producer, Jen. And Jen, in what is very early in the day for her. So my lives for the month of December, for the round days coming up, and I am here Boxing Day. So if I'm here Boxing Day, you better be here Boxing Day. 3 p.m. is my time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific is what my time is going to be for the rest of the month. And again, if you're just joining this and go, oh my goodness, Life Pro does lives and they teach us how to use these things. If you see an invite or you get a notification, interact with the event, either say maybe or going, and then that way you'll get notifications. A lot of times I do posts and ramble and choke you with scientific links and things like that. Jen might drop some store links. So there's product information. So interact with the live in some way, and then you'll get notifications. If you miss the live, don't worry. If you come into the live and it's done, the recorded video is there ready for you to go. So you can't nag at me and ask me questions, and I can't nag back at you. But if you ever did have a question for me after I've done a live, at Debby with a Y, Debby, and I will get back to you and answer that question, because you know what, it's a 24-hour world, and I understand that sometimes life gets in the way. Dolores is using her Rumblex. If you don't have this new flex step, or you don't have some, even just something a little bit firm that's about the size of your plate, put the bad hip off the machine and get that good hip on the machine. Give that good hip as much action, that good leg as much as you can, because it's going to be doing all the work after this, Dolores. And just keep me posted. I think you are in my fat disorders group. I do have a pre and post surgery video in that one as well, so you can search that out. I've also done some here as well. So sometimes, life changes and your personal physical situation changes, especially when you're dealing with a disability. So sometimes the way that you're doing your therapies, or how often, needs to change, not because your therapist has told you, but maybe work changed your shift on you, or maybe you've got family coming from for the weekend. So sometimes life gets in the way. I want you to enjoy life. So never be afraid to just use your machine or your massage gun for a minute or two. Do not beat yourself up if you haven't done your big protocol and your therapy. Just do something, make yourself feel better, get that mental health going. The rest will come. It's all a complementary relationship. Thank you very much, guys. I need to be in your fat disorders group. I have lipedema. What is the title of your group? Vibration for Fat Disorders. There's a lot of disabilities within that group. A disability, as I said, it's not always cerebral palsy or that you've had a leg amputated in World War II. Sometimes a disability is just your body's not working in the way that it is, and it makes accessibility to buildings and life challenging. So today's Day of Awareness is very much about beating up those that should make life accessible to you. There should be wheelchair ramps and elevators everywhere. But I'm about, I want you to be independent if you're not now. Or if you're independent now, I want you to stay that way for as long as you're able. So a lot of the things I'm showing, I'm not here to beat you up about exercises. I just want you to keep mobile, keep active, and you've got the tool to do it. If I give you a little bit of motivation by being here Mondays and nagging at you, that's usually what most of us need the most, is just a cheerleader in our corner supporting us. And that's what a couple of my groups are. So I do have two groups: cerebral palsy, which it should be called special needs, because there's so much other things there now, but that's kind of that's the way it is on Facebook now. So it's hard for me to change. And my other group is fat disorders. I know it's a terrible name. Many people take offense to the fact that I call it fat disorders, but until you know that things like lymphedema, lipedema, Durkheim's disease, loose connective tissue, until you understand the terminology, you're just seeking. And many people on the internet, are looking for things like, how do I use a vibration plate? I have painful fat. Or how do I use a vibration plate? My kid has rheumatoid arthritis. So, I try to put my groups and my info out there in a term that you can first find the information, and through the education that Life Pro is so generous in providing through these sessions, hopefully we get you in the right direction. There's 3 of us doing these sessions, myself, Roseanne, and Amber, and we've all got our different styles, and there's all different passions that we share, but the biggest passion we have in common is you and improving your personal life. So thank you for joining me on my Rambling Monday. I look forward to seeing you next week. I think I'm focusing on a product. I don't have it at the tip of my tongue, but you'll see that live Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific. Me and my girl Jen behind the scenes that's making me look good. Thank you very much, you guys. Don't work too hard, and have a great day.